Hey everyone, it's the Shawn. Welcome to another session of Influencer of Tomorrow. Today we're joined by Brad Wallace, who's done a variety of things. He's built and sold companies. He's also now teaching people how to do TEDx events, how to position themselves. So he's not just an influencer of tomorrow. He's helping other people be the influencers of tomorrow. Joined by my regular co-host, George Hendley. Hey, George. George is a speaking coach. He works with people on how to really build their presence, how to connect the way they want to with their audiences, and really how to drive business through speaking. For those of you that don't tune in as often, I'm the Shawn. I'm a corporate lawyer by training. I help people with ownership and control of their business. So that's mergers, capital raises, partnership agreements, contract negotiations. I also do a lot of speaking about business strategy. What is the future of business? How do you position your business to be relevant as a future? Brad's, agreed to join us today. Going to give us some great tidbits on his views of being an influencer of tomorrow. And we promise you in this show, you'll get some tips which will help you better position yourself to be an influencer of tomorrow. Drop your comments below. We'll be reading them. So any of our LinkedIn pages, our Shawn McBride fans and audiences on Facebook, the YouTube channel for Influencer of Tomorrow. Wherever you're viewing this, drop your comments. We'll be reading the comments. We may respond, and we may use the tips you give us to inspire new sessions. So tell us what you need. We'll try to get you the information that you want right on this show. With that, welcome to the show, Brad. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, George. I'm excited to be on today.
Yes.
It's a Friday.
It is. So we're recording this right before Christmas 2018, and it's a great time, and we're kind of time to reflect on one year, get ready for another year, and move things up to the next level.
This is like the Three Amigos.
Yeah. Let's ride. Yeah.
We are all connected through the Smart Femme family, and so we've done a lot with the Smart Femme Entrepreneur Network, and we all take a look to the future. So, Brad, I know you do a lot of coaching with TEDx. You help people build their influence. What does it mean to you to be an influencer of tomorrow? And what do you think that means to other people?
Well, I look at the people that are in my network that are around me, and somebody that is a business partner and a friend is Devin Walker. And he actually goes out and helps the homeless. He helps feed the homeless. He gave millions of dollars to a children's hospital in Wichita, Kansas. And so you see people today don't want to hear, BS. I cleaned that up for you guys.
Right. Sure,
they want an actual person who is a leader who gives a damn. And so I look at those influencers that they are their brand. Let's put it this way. I mean, a lot of them have built multi-million-dollar companies. They built everything up to whatever. They're billionaires. And we know in the news, you can see who they are. Richard Branson, you see Gary Vee, you get these people. Once you've accomplished something of note, then you can start running around and start being an influencer and start talking about it and being on social media. And a lot of people, they do this in reverse. They haven't built anything. They haven't created a company. They haven't done anything, but they're really big on social media. That's not the kind of thought leader we're talking about. And I know people who sit around all day and think up quotes that they can quote themselves on.
Yes.
Stop it. That's all I have to say. Just stop. Okay? It drives me crazy. I was building a multi-million-dollar company in my 30s and accidentally discovered the power of media. And so we would have like Cranes, an advertising age, calling our office, and they wanted us to be featured in an expose on all these companies that were building the World Wide Web. And we were one of the first, my company K2. And so I sent some photos of me and my buddies, who had founded the company, and all of a sudden we're on the main page of the expose, almost a full page, just our picture in the office, and our phone started to ring off the hook. And after that, I've appeared in dozens of other publications, and every time I appeared in a publication, the phone would ring. So this is the power of the media, and here we are in the middle of the 20th century or 21st century, And now we're discovering social media and the power of that community that you're building. Mm-hmm. And people now know that this is sit-forward media. So they want to see the wrinkles. They want to see my little spotlight here. You know, they want to see, you know, if I walk through the house here, all the dents and wrinkles and things in my home office. They don't want the slick Hollywood production anymore. They want real. They want authentic, especially since the 2008 collapse. They don't want to hear that BS. Yep. So that's why I brought up Devin in the beginning, Devin Walker, is because he puts his money where his mouth is. This is an influencer who has built companies, worked with some of the top bands in the world, actually, and brands, and quietly does it. And then turns around and gives to a charity or donates money or gets involved. Yep. And you don't have to have a loud voice, but you have to have a real voice that's helping and giving back to the community. I think the most annoying thing is when we keep seeing videos and photos of people who are presenting themselves for their brand, and it's like, me, 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 me. Mm-hmm. You know, have a couple of photos with you and some friends. Go to a soup kitchen, for God's sake, and take some pictures of families that are there and finally enjoying a Christmas dinner for the first time. You know, I mean, there are people out there that are suffering. And our brand has to be much more than, you know, the Kardashian living big ideology. You know what I mean? It's getting annoying.
Yeah, I think there is something to be said for that. There is a lot of fake branding out there. I mean, you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
What's interesting with him is he'll tell people just start, you know, building a brand without having anything behind it. But I think there's got to really be some combination of the two, right? I mean, you gotta have something of value to give to the world before you start talking about it.
Well, look at Gary. Gary took his parents' company from $4 million to $40 million. Yeah. So he's probably a guy you want to shut up and listen to. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think in this day and age, there's a very narrow window of what you can get away with. So the advice he gives today where he says, yeah, just do it, that's going to go away.
Yeah.
You know, we find every couple of cycles, maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year. Facebook, Google, they all change their analytics. They all change their criteria. And all of a sudden, what used to work doesn't work anymore.
Right.
So you have to be on top of this all the time. So wouldn't it just be better to just, you know, present yourself once in a while on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever, bring up some real stuff that people can use, and worry about building your business. Just build that business. Then everybody's going to want to talk to you.
Right. Well, show up with something to say, right? I mean, I think that's one of the keys here, right, is you got to not just show up and start talking. You got to show up with something that people want to tune into.
The thing I want to bring in right here is Gary V had a different kind of voice when it came to wine. He wasn't talking like the typical wine snob who was talking about this and that and acting like they were above the crowd. He brought it down to the everyman's kind of level, and the everyman said, this guy is real, this guy is authentic, this guy is someone I'll listen to because he talks my language. And they bought him, and then they bought the product.
So this is the best part about this, George. His brother would make the videos in his office, and he would always end almost every broadcast with bitching about the Jets. So, yeah. And the one thing I liked, he would always go, he's like, I don't know what this wine's made of. I don't know if it's fruity or if it's whatever. But he goes, I know it tastes really great with this steak, you know, and he would just show you. And that's what guys want to hear. And then the best part, this was the best part, he would have a link always so you could buy a case of it, not a bottle, a case.
Yeah.
Right.
Ta-da. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So you know, he built it, but it was to do business differently, right? And so people will see me in my unusual suit.
Yeah.
I talk about on every episode. I tell people do business differently. You got to have something unique. You can't copy and paste. I think that's the worst, is when somebody has nothing really to talk about and all they're doing is copying what other people are saying.
Yeah. And I don't really need to see another Kardashian buy a fur coat or, you know, go get another bag or get on another jet. I mean, the audience, there's an audience that watches that and then walks away. And
Yeah.
there's an audience that's obsessed with that.
So you're positioning to be a leader of tomorrow, Brad. I mean, you are a leader. You've got a lot of people looking up to you, people coming to you for advice, and you're helping other people build that leadership role. What is that like, and what is the process of saying maybe you have some good content, but you want to get yourself positioned as a leader? How does that happen?
Well, this is the most fun about the work that I do, because I kind of I let them talk. Tell me your story.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll hear some amazing stories. Like one woman I interviewed, she was telling me how successful she was. And she was going on for 15, 20 minutes. And then I said, well, what made you start all this? What made you turn all this around? And she goes, I was in jail after stabbing my husband. And you're like,
Okay.
What? And you find out he was a Marine, and he was knocking her out every night. So you think that's extreme. She had to save her life. Yeah. So I'll talk to somebody and they'll suddenly say, well, I was going to be an engineer, have 2 master's degrees, and all of a sudden I realized this is not my passion. And now they're the top leader in juicing and health. So these stories, as they're telling me, they're not sure what would fit on a TED stage. And it's my job to listen and pull out those nuggets, and all of a sudden go, whoa, wait a minute. What did you just say? And all of a sudden you realize that would make an amazing TED Talk. You dodged how many bullets to get out of Vietnam in the middle of the night? What? And you would never know it because they're a quiet storm.
Yeah.
Every person I've ever interviewed, they're humble, they're a little shy. They don't know if their story's going to fit on that stage. And all of a sudden you're like, what? I feel incredibly blessed and grateful to be able to hear these stories, because I get to incubate them a little bit.
Yep.
And that's the power of what I do, the process of what I do.
So part of what I'm hearing from you is becoming an influencer is about getting something unique and honing it into a message for other people.
Yes, because this is something that a lot of people don't realize. 98% of professional speakers are rejected for a TED Talk.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are like, well, why is that? They're so polished and slick. Well, that's the problem. They are polished and slick, and they don't know how to shut off the sales button in their head. TED Talks are about vulnerability. It's about what knocked you on your butt to make you do the work you do today. There's always something. What made me do the work I do today is because nobody understood me as a kid. I was misunderstood. I was ahead of my time. I was more like a millennial. And now when they came along, we recognized each other. That was really the crux of my work. So if you can get back to the seed that made you do what you do today, that's usually what I try to do. And that's where the passion comes from. That's where the quirky, weird reason that they're standing on a stage doing what they do. And you might not know this, but most of the speakers I run into were stutterers or deathly shy as a kid, or somebody who never wanted to speak. And you go, well, why? How did you wind up on a stage being more comfortable than anybody else to stand in front of 6,000 people at a time and just love doing that? Right. That's natural. So we get to that story.
I think that's powerful, right? So it's a story, but that builds the connection. And I think that's another theme we see with influencers, right? Is you have to connect.
Right. We've all been through pain. Let's be honest. And,
sure.
And the speakers of old, unless they're the greats like Zig Ziglar, they hid their pain. They said, well, do you know how much money I made because I did this? Well, they never tell you this, the William Shatner kind of story where after Star Trek, he's living in a pickup truck in Manhattan, bringing his clothes out at a fire hydrant. In the past, nobody really wanted to hear those stories. They actually did, but most speakers didn't know how to do that. So right around 2008, I know the $1 million speakers who made $1 million a year, their businesses plummeted because they were still telling feel-good stories. People want to know how you survived with that startup and you had no money and you hadn't eaten for 3 days. What did you do?
Right.
What happened when your brother died 6 hours before your keynote address? That happened to me.
Oh, wow.
what do you do when you have to, struggle to help feed your family when your parents are gone and you're 15 years old?
Yep. I get that. And I think big part of it is, there's life lessons there. It's valuable, but it's also relatable, right? You become a human.
Totally.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What do you think tomorrow looks like as we move into the future of speaking and of influencing? What do you think the leaders of tomorrow are going to look like? What additional characteristics or what different characteristics they're going to have than current or the past?
I think they're going to have shorter speeches. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, they're going to have to be very comfortable with the media being used live. I love when people are actually on their iPads and their iPhones in the audience.
Yeah.
I give them homework to do. But the speaker of tomorrow cannot be boring.
Right.
They hit the stage with this, do you know who I am? I invented Teflon back in the 70s. No one gives a damn. You have to hit that stage powerful, comfortable, dynamic, interactive.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of plates to be spinning in the air, and most people don't have the training to do this. They need to get the training. There's a lot of young people out there that are just confident enough to say, I'm going to be a speaker. They get on stage, they get off stage, everybody's going to stand in line and shake your hand and go, you were incredible. But how many gigs are you going to get hired for after?
Right.
Everybody's going to tell you to your face that you're good.
Yeah.
You need somebody who's going to sit there and say, you know what? You need to bring your A game. Do you know how many ums and ands and how many times did you say that?
I don't know.
Yeah. You've got to eliminate those. And only a great coach can do that and point that out to you.
Yep.
You've got to hit with that opening story that makes everybody in the audience sit forward. Okay? It took me years to get my opening story, to know that it was just as simple as telling the audience how my dad was on my 18th birthday. Boom.
So, Brad, I want to bring up something that is what I would call sort of a magical part of your past. It's this book that you wrote right at 10 years ago.
Yep.
Liquid Leadership.
Yeah.
Right? Just the title alone says this guy recognizes that leadership is not about this, and this, hard, set in stone, unchanging. But the title, I thought, he recognizes the flow and the malleability and the give and the take that is incredibly important for leadership that is constantly changing. I want to build off of that, if you would, to talk about liquid leadership when you were really in the business world day in and day out, but where you see that going for the future with the millennial generation.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. Time does fly. It's amazing. All I can say is I was raised on hierarchy and listened to your older bosses. That's how I was raised. So when I started K2 Design, we started to have a new type of workforce that was telling us off. And I realized if I didn't change the way I was leading, I would have an empty office. So I started to listen, adapt, listen some more. When the smarter people were in the room, I would shut up and listen. I was surrounded by MIT graduates and people who were building and designing websites and building software. One of the most powerful phrases I ever started using was, look, I don't know this technology.
Yep.
Explain it to me as if I'm 6 years old. And you would be amazed at how much that diffused people. They would sit forward and they would explain the whole thing to me in layman's terms. And then they were always shocked when I'd sit up and I go, can we use a microprocessor to transmit this through the atmosphere and do this with it and do that? And they're like, yeah, we could do that. So you start to listen, you start to adapt, you start to create connections, not just with your employees, but you start to see the connections with customers as well, because leadership isn't just about what's going on internally, it's also about what's going on externally.
Yeah, And I think what you just said is so powerful, right? I mean, as a leader, to stop and ask questions and to show that you value somebody else's input and that you can learn from them as well, I think that changes the dynamic a ton.
Well, you have to listen in this day and age because things are happening too fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to listen to the millennial who just got hired. I have to listen to the Gen Xer who has a management problem. I have to listen to everybody. And that's a different skill set in this day and age.
Yeah, and that's been interesting. I'm doing a series with meeting planners for my Future Done Right show, and we're doing the future of meetings. And one thing almost every meeting planner is saying is they want interaction at their meeting. They want input from the audience flowing to the stage. They no longer want one-way communication. This has come up with the vast majority of the meeting planners.
That's funny.
Two-way.
That's funny you should mention that. The original part of the design industry that I fell into by accident back in the 80s was doing meetings. And so I was doing the big, large-scale meetings for like Ford Motor Cars and also the big pharmaceutical industry shows. And we were using slides back then, George. You might remember back in the day.
Whoa, I remember those days.
And so I am the creative director every year for the last 7 years for the United Negro College Fund gala dinner. And so what happens is we've used different set panels now to make it easier, LED sets, and the lighting is more intense. And we have panels around the back of the room all the way around it, more interactive screens. And then they do an auction, and that has to be more interactive. And so I just take the cue from my own industry. I'm a very interactive speaker. If you've ever seen me on stage, I hate standing at a podium. So I leap off the stage. I have toys in my hands. I ask a lot of questions. And a lot of people don't know this, but I trained professionally as a stand-up comedian at one point in my life. And one of my favorite things was crowd work. And that's all this is. It's crowd work. I ask you questions. I make jokes. I have jokes that align with what I'm teaching. That's the most important part. And so you create an interactive experience. Any speaker who stands on stage, their job is not to give all this information. Your job is to be entertaining. You should give them a moment in their life where they walk out of there and go, wow, I just saw something amazing, or I learned something amazing. Anybody who has ever seen me speak knows that every one of my stories will make you go, I didn't think of it that way. Boom. And how can you use that at work? How can you use that as a parent? How can you use that as a business person?
Yep. Powerful stuff. George?
Yeah. So one of the thoughts that just bubbled up as you're talking about the entertainment factor, Brad, was the quote, I use it all the time. It's Johnny Carson. And he said, people will pay more for entertainment than they will for education. And in today's world, anytime we're on a bigger stage, if we're not spicing it up with some entertainment along the way, it may not be, fall out of your chair funny, but at least it's captivating their mind with a story that they haven't heard, an analogy that is uniquely different, something that again adds that unique spice.
Yeah.
Then they're looking at you as like yesteryear, and I'm checking out. And the attention span of our audience today, oh my gosh, it is small.
Right. Well, I'm glad you said what you said, because the largest audience I've ever spoken in front of was 6,000 people. And we were being broadcast at the same time, and it was being interpreted into 4 different languages.
Wow.
German, some African dialect, and something else. I forget what it was. Japanese. Yeah. So that's actually how I met my wife.
Interesting.
So she interpreted me from English to French. So that meant I had to slow down. I had to take out American colloquialisms, and I had to pace my talk differently.
Yeah.
Now, most people, when they get on a stage and they can't see the people in the very back rafters, they think they have to stand on their tiptoes and yell.
Yep.
No. The first person in the first row in front of me after the cameras is 30 feet away. So these are moments where you have to know, and you have to be with a trained professional coach to help you through this, is being more entertaining and more interactive doesn't mean you start juggling all of a sudden. What it means is you craft your stories in a way where you're animated, you're moving more, you rely on the technology, because my face is on these giant screens on either side of me. I might not be able to see them, but I'm there. And I always warn the stage manager and the camera people, I move a lot. Okay? Because there's a couple of guys who like to set the camera and lock it and just sit back.
Yep.
I am one of those speakers.
Yep.
So I've learned, and this is an old trick they teach you in stand-up comedy. You do your setup to the audience that's in front of you, but you hit your punchline to the cameras. Okay? Nice little trick.
That's good.
Yeah. So you have to practice that. You have to know what to say and practice it properly so you deliver the punchline. And sometimes if your setup is good, your punchlines are just one-liners that keep coming one after another.
Yep. So being funny obviously helps build that connection we've talked about from the beginning. What else, Brad? As we wrap up here today, what else? What other tips do you have for people that want to be an influencer of tomorrow or want to build that presence?
Don't be afraid to be yourself. A lot of people try to be what they think other people want you to be.
Mm-hmm.
When you meet me in person, a lot of times I'm the same person you've seen on TV or you've seen on a podcast or you've listened to. I'm pretty much the same individual. I actually like to blow my clients' minds by being quiet when I show up, and we talk a little and I'm interactive. And then the guy who hits the stage has all this energy and it's funny. And when I come off, they're like, whoa, we didn't know you could do that. It's almost like we used to have a saying in comedy, save it for the stage.
Yep.
And so you want to be able to just be the person off stage that they see on stage. You don't want to create a persona.
Right.
And now some people think that means they have to be like Gary Vee and start having a potty mouth. In private, I do have a potty mouth. I will be honest with you. I had a father who gargled with swear words, even though he had a PhD. So I have learned through the years to clean that up.
Yep.
Okay, and be very cognizant of what comes out of my mouth. If I can do it, you can do it. Okay, so just remember, you're in control of what comes out of this.
Yeah.
You have to make a choice. Are you going to be like Gary Vee, who uses the F word all the time? Maybe you're talking to the Teamsters Union. That might be appropriate. But please don't think you can get away with that language when you're talking to the financial sectors. I have several friends. A good buddy of mine, he talks to the financial sectors all over. And basically, I told him, start with who you are and what you know. Mm-hmm. And Achilles is probably one of the top speakers in the market for Latinos. So he's Latin. He's also a martial artist, and he has his Series 6 license, and he's a financial officer, all kinds of stuff. So he wrote his book from helping Latino families be able to save money and be able to save their wealth and actually build something that they can pass on to the next generation. Do you know he's one of the only people in the market doing that?
Interesting.
And because of that, he's on Fox, he's on CBS, he's on all of these. So start with what you know, who you are. And by the way, if you have an individuality, a nationality, a background, celebrate that.
Run with it.
If you're Latino, celebrate that. If you're Black American, celebrate that. Get in there, because there aren't a lot of people in those sectors that are helping. You've got to do that. We need more people like you. If you're a woman, a strong, single mother, get in there. Talk about this. This is who we need, because you represent America. And let me tell you, you know what the fastest growing need is internationally for speakers? women.
There you go.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Fantastic advice, Brad. Thank you very much here. And we really appreciate you being part of our interview series and helping getting people to think bigger. So if you're watching this, had some good takeaways, like, comment, share. We want to get this, we want to get those search engines going. We want more people to see this so we can help more folks and get Brad's great content and message out there.
You. Thanks, everybody.
I want to remind you folks, you can check out past episodes and you can also see upcoming guests at influenceroftomorrow.com and at the Influencer of Tomorrow YouTube channel. So go check both of those out and feel free to comment and we'll reach back out. We're looking for your feedback on the show. We want to pat you on the back for doing the hard work, investing in yourself, being here. Thank you, of course, Brad, for joining us and delivering so much great information.
Thank you, Shawn.
It was fantastic having you.
And George, you didn't show off your vest, man. We got to see the Harley vest, brother. Nice.
Awesome. Look at that. Yes.
Nice.
All right, folks. We'll see you all soon.